Hello, my name is Steve Thornburg, and I'm the course manager for U.S. Federal Income Tax at WKU University. I had received my PhD from the University of Central Florida in 2005, and I've been an active CPA in the United States for 30 years. I'm going to talk about a general overview of the course. I'm going to talk a little bit about the environment that we're teaching in, the teaching plan design, the teaching method, some innovations that we have included into the course, and how we evaluate the course and compare it with prior courses and make improvements. So, as far as the course overview, U.S. Federal Income Tax teaches students how to compute U.S. federal income taxes and determine allowable credits for individuals, including their businesses and investments. Students should understand how and why taxes are levied and how income is reported. Students should also understand the ethical requirements of tax professionals in assisting people in determining their tax liability. Students should also understand that U.S. income taxes are used to raise revenue for the government while encouraging certain behaviors and discouraging others. Some of the key problems that need to be solved in our teaching plan include computing the federal income tax liability and determining and utilizing allowable credits that reduce the liability. Computing the overall tax result for a sole proprietorship business is another key point. We may also have alternative minimum tax that's levied on individuals, depending upon their income levels and the types of deductions that they've taken. We also discuss various options that are related to property transactions, including the tax basis or the cost basis of the property and how we would determine the gain and loss at the time of disposition or sale or exchange. There's also many special rules that are related to things like home ownership, educational costs, casualty losses, and investments. These are just some of the items that have special rules that are attached to them, and we would need to consider those as well. Finally, we would also be looking at transferring assets between an individual and the various other tax entities such as corporations, partnerships, and limited liability companies. The teaching method that we use is based on narratives, and the students read the narratives and calculate the income tax based upon the circumstances that they read there. One of the first things that has to be done is we determine the individual's filing status, such as whether they're single or they're married, or they're single with children at a household, or if they're married and they're filing separate from their spouse. All these have an impact on the tax rates and some of the tax benefits and deductions that are available to the individuals. The income tax has to be calculated using either tax tables or tax rate schedules. There's other additional taxes such as self-employment taxes and additional taxes for Medicare that might be considered. There's lots of things like this. We would also then, once we have the total tax liability, is to reduce the liability using any credits that might be available. And finally, we would have perhaps estimated payments that have been made, and we would also want the students to understand when those estimated payments would have to be made and what happens if you don't make them, such as penalties and interest for underpayments. Here's an example of a narrative. In this particular example, we have Lance and Wanda, who are married and they live in New Mexico. They're both wage earners. You can see they have salaries combined of $100,000 or so. They have some interest income, some of which is taxable, some of which is not taxable. They receive child support from a previous parent. They get some gifts from parents. They have a legal settlement from an accident. They also have some lottery winnings and tax refunds from prior years. So all these are types of common types of income items that would have to be sorted and reported on the various tax forms that we have. Now, one of the main innovations that we've made in this particular course is to simplify the income tax formula. The income tax forms there's thousands of income tax forms and they're all interlinked, and it's not obvious the effect of one item on the total tax. So using a worksheet that's both either paper or electronic, we can help the students in visualizing the entire tax calculation process without having to go through all the numerous tax forms and schedules. So we also use the published tax forms and the instructions so that students are aware of what these things look like. But the worksheet is the most simple way to get through the tax calculation process. Here is an example of a worksheet that we use, and you can see on the left-hand side we have the taxpayers. Alice and Bruce are both married. They have children, Carol and David. And then we would go through the income items that perhaps Alice has. She's a nurse, for instance, and she has some wages. She has some federal tax that's been withheld. She has bond interest, dividend income, and so on and so forth. And we would list also the income items and the deduction items that Bruce has. And then we would have combined deductions for both of them, perhaps from their personal residence or so on and so forth. So these items are then reported on the right-hand side in this worksheet. You can see that it simplifies. Some things are included on there, they're taxable, and some things are excluded or exempt from income tax and they're left off. So the students can easily calculate the income tax, the total income in this particular case, and then the deductions, and calculate the tax liability at the end of the worksheet. This particular worksheet is about 2 pages long, and it has prompts for various income items and deduction items so that it reminds the students to consider different things as they're reading through the narrative. As far as teaching, evaluation, and comparison, our students' comprehension is assessed using objective examinations and written assignments and class discussions. These learning outcomes, or the grades, are compared with prior courses, and we also take course evaluations from the students in terms of what they feel that they received from the course and the level of difficulty, and we determine if there's any areas that we can improve. These types of questions are also given to the students during the course, and we can make some minor corrections during the course, but any major structural changes, such as changes in adding or changing resources, changes in the topics that are covered, or changes in some of these basic implementation policies, are made before the course begins. So that's the overview of the U.S. Federal Income Tax course. Thank you very much.